What is up, guys? This is Pinzo back with another video today, and what I have for you guys is something a little bit different. This is a video that I wanted to make for a while, and I finally sat down and made it. This is one change that I would make to every predecessor hero. This is not just damage number changes. This is not something that would just be in like a normal patch note, right? This is what I would change about their kit to make their kit either more fun to play against, less annoying, or less frustrating, I guess. Annoying kits are fine, but frustrating kits are not. And so we're just gonna jump into this. I don't want this to eat too much time. There's like 30 heroes in this. I'm gonna try and get through them in a timely manner. So we're gonna jump right into this. So Countess, number one. Her Q is the ability that I would change here, and me personally, I would reduce the range on this, and I would take away the invulnerability. I honestly don't think she needs it. I think that giving this like a cleanse effect on when you shadow slip is fine. I think that'd be fine, but I don't think it needs total damage invulnerability. I think that's just a little too much, and I would reduce the range by about a third. Currently, it's auto attack range. I would reduce it to about 2/3 of auto attack range. So that's the changes I'd make to Countess. I think it would make her much less frustrating to play against, but I think she would still be strong. I mean, she still has instant way to get in and explode people. She just has to position a little better before that. What did I do? Okay, Crunch. Okay, so Crunch. I've thought about this one a little bit. The change I would make to Crunch is his ultimate. The healing passive on his ultimate is every third basic or ability you heal. I'd scrap that. Instead, give him a passive that every ability you hit on an enemy hero gives you 1% damage mitigation, stacking up to 10 times is about what I'm thinking. I mean, and the numbers can change here, but this is the thought process. Is that this would make Crunch really good in a fight where he's brawling and he gets to hit a bunch of abilities, you know, maybe he's switching targets or whatever. But if these stacks last for like 10 seconds, then you get to switch targets, you get to make your way through a fight with being really tanky. And what it would stop Crunch from doing is taking a big trade and then backing up to the minion wave and just full healing and then coming in to take another trade. It would make him less of a lane bully, but it would make him a much better fighter, which I think would be really interesting. So that's what I would do to Crunch. Decker, this one's really hard, to be honest. I think Decker's kit is quite good. The main thing I would do is I would probably change the cage. I think I would make it smaller, to be honest. I think I would make it smaller. And that sounds really, really, like, nitpicky and weird, but I'd reduce its size by, like, 20 or 25%, and I think that it would make Decker a little less frustrating to play against. She'd still be able to close off all the points in the map that she can use it to close off, but I think she'd be a little less frustrating to play against when you, like, get caught on the very edge of a cage. You'd have to be a little closer. Your positioning as Decker would have to be a little better. Again, I think this character's kit's pretty good, so I hesitate to say she needs changes, but we're doing a change for everyone anyway. So Drongo's another hard one, to be honest, because his passive is the only part of his kit that I don't like, but making a new passive is actually pretty difficult without changing anything in the kit. So for this, what I would probably do is I would scrap his current passive just because it's really boring. And I would give him a passive that's something like, because he uses all of these different weapons within his kit, I'd give him a passive that does something for each ability that's on cooldown. Whether that's giving him attack speed, maybe it gives him a little bit of physical power, maybe it gives him, you know, a little bit of movement speed or movement speed plus attack speed kind of thing, like a couple % of each. For each ability that's on cooldown. And I think that's about what I would do to Drongo. It would make it so that if you use your kit correctly in the right order, then when you pop your rad rounds, you could have, you know, an extra 10 or 20% attack speed and get off an extra rad rounds in that shot, you know. Something like that. Again, making passives on a kit that's already existing is really difficult, but his passive is definitely what I would change. Fang Mao, this one's pretty easy for me. Fang Mao, the one change I'd make to him, make his ultimate a % health execute. Either 25 or 30%. You could make it a scaling execute if you wanted, but I'd say 25 or 30%. And that's it. That's about it. Other than that, the only other thing this character needs is that when you're playing against Fang Mao and you're in execute range, they need to put a little skull on your screen so that you know you're in execute range. That's more quality of life. But I'd make his ultimate a % health execute. This would make it a little bit better against tanks, and it would make it worse against squishy targets, because right now, late game Fang Mao ultimate is like almost a 50% health execute on squishies, so this wouldn't be that on squishies anymore, but it'd be a little bit better against tanks. It would just make it more readable, in my opinion. You would know when you're executable. You would know when you're getting towards that Feng Mao execute. I think that that'd be a really good change. Moving on to Gadget. This one's hard because I think you kind of have to rework more of Gadget to make this work, but her Q is what I would change. And the way I would change this is I would make it, when you throw it out, the radius is small, and the longer it sits on the ground, the radius gets bigger. And this would work even if you throw this out and it's right on top of someone on the small radius. It would grab them, and then the radius would get bigger. But I would also have this explode if someone gets hit by your right click. If this is on someone and it gets hit by and they get hit by your right click, it explodes. So if you hit them with your Q right away and a right click, it'll be a really small radius. It'll be basically single target that it'll explode. But if it stays on them longer, then the radius will get to, you know, what it is now, which will be a bit more of an AoE damage kind of thing. And it'll also make it less frustrating to play against in lane because you'll have to be more accurate with your hats to hit them. Because once the hat's on the ground, you know, in a 1v1 at least, no one's walking into it. So, you know, that kind of thing. In a fight, you know, you might get people to walk into it just because it's more chaotic. But that's what I would change to Gadget. Gideon. This is another tough one. Personally, I would just reduce the range on his E. I think that this goes too far. He's the only mid laner with an escape anywhere like this, and I think that it just is too much. I think I would take this down a little bit, like 2/3 of auto attack range, you know, the same kind of range as Countess, like the Countess Q change that I would do, the similar thing. I would just take down the length of his E. I just think it's too much. Greystone. This is another tough one because this character is pretty well made. Like, he's supposed to be a simple character, and he does that very well. Personally, I would probably change his E, but I don't know exactly what I would change it to. Like, this is definitely the ability I would change. Do you give it more damage and take away the slow? Maybe. I think I'd rather have it, like, take the damage down a little bit, but make it do something if you hit all 3 hits on somebody. So if you hit the first hit and the second hit and then the third hit, make the third hit, you know, root for half a second. That might be a little strong. Make it anti-heal. I don't know. Make it do something if you hit all 3 hits on the same target. I think that'd be interesting. Maybe it's even just burst damage. Maybe it does an extra 100 damage if you hit the same target with all 3 of them. Maybe it, you know, reduces their damage output by 10% for 5 seconds if you hit the same target with all 3 of them, right? Something like that. That'd be an interesting way to reward you for being able to stick to one target with your entire E. That's what I would look at. Grux. The number 1 change I would make to Grux is let him use his Q, his pull in the air. If Grux can dash in the air, I personally see no reason why he can't start his Q in the air. Obviously, you wouldn't really be able to pull people while you're in the air, but you could press the button, and then when you hit the ground, it would pull. You know, like, obviously, while you're in the air, you wouldn't be able to pull people, but once you hit the ground, it goes off. That's the number 1 change I'd make to Grux. It'd be a really good quality of life to be able to activate that, like, while you're falling off a ledge, or being able to jump and pull people. That kind of thing. I think it'd be really nice. Howitzer. I would change Howie's ult. I've talked about this quite a bit on stream. Howie's ult currently is like a single target FU button, and I don't really like that. I would change this to he jumps up into the air the same way, and he stalls a little bit, and he gets to choose an AoE on the ground, like a pretty good size, like 2/3 of the size of Gideon ult AoE, and a giant, like, Acme-style rocket. Like, we're talking, like, absurdly big rocket shoots out of Howitzer. And it does, like, you know, 100% damage in the little center AoE, and it does, you know, 70 or 60% damage on the outer ring of it, and it does, you know, a bajillion damage. It does the amount of damage that Howie ult currently does, but all at once. And I think that'd be really cool. It would be a true burst damage mage ultimate in the game, an AoE burst damage mage ult, which currently there are none. All of the mage ults in the game are either single target burst damage or AoE tick damage, and I think that's a little bit boring. I think Howie could be the AoE burst damage guy. Iggy and Scorch. All right, this is the newest character in the game, obviously, so grain of salt on the fact that I've played this character, you know, 25 games or something like that. The change I'd make to Iggy is his turrets. I think his turrets right now are mostly okay. but I would, number one, reduce the health on them. Make the health, currently the health on the turret scales with your champion level, with your hero level. Instead of, I would change them to scale with the level of the ability. So if you are maxing your turrets first, they will be tankier. If you're not, they will be squishier. That's the first thing I'd change. The other thing I'd change is I would make them do more base damage, but don't proc item effects. I think in this game, having turrets that proc items, in my opinion, is just a little bit too strong. But if you reduce the HP, then maybe it wouldn't be as big of a problem. The HP is the primary change that I would make here. Kalari. All right, Kalari's a tough one because my gut says take away her stealth, but I really don't think that's probably the right way. I think if you took away this character's stealth, she'd probably be terrible. So if I had to actually change something, it would probably, it would probably be her stealth. I think I would make this louder. I think that you can't hear this from far enough away. Kalari, the fact that she can be in stealth for 8 seconds is a really long time. So I think you need to be able to hear her stealth from farther away to alert you for when she's around. It just is a sound cue that lets you know when she's around you, and I think that would be really, really useful. That's the main thing I would probably change about her without having to rework a decent amount of her kit. Chimera. This is another hard one because, again, a very simple character who's supposed to be simple. These kind of characters can be a little bit hard to change because of how simple they are, and they're supposed to be simple, so that's fine. The main change I'd probably make here is to his E. I really like this ability, but I think I want it to give you something extra. So for those of you that don't know, Chimera's passive gives you movement speed. If you have 15 stacks, it gives you a little bit of move speed. I would make his E do something similar. So, like, if you're above 15 stacks when you pop this, or maybe because this is his E, make it a higher, count, make it 20 stacks. If you have 20 or more stacks when you use this ability, maybe increase the CC immunity time. Currently, it's half a second. Maybe give him 1 second of CC immunity if he's above 20 stacks. This rewards him for using this in a fight instead of just using it to bait an ability while you're kind of sieging. Right, it's a reward for that being in the mix, which is what this character wants to do. I think it'd be interesting. Obviously, you could do something else. You could maybe give him, if you're above 20 stacks when you use this ability, the healing from it is, doubled or something like that, which that'd be crazy. But that, the point being, that's what I would do to this. Give him an extra bonus to his E. Kira, this one's pretty easy. I would let her use her dash, her E, vertically. Just go where she points it. She turns into a bird. Just let her go up. That one's pretty easy for me. It's already a short dash. You're not going to be able to make it up very many ledges with this anyway, but just let her go vertically with this. That's all I would change. Bellica, this one's super easy again. Ultimate, just don't make it a lock-on. Literally just make it a line. That's it. That's it. Make it a line ability. You have to aim it. It can be the same range, and then for the increase on this, for her passive increase, currently the range gets increased, but for the passive increase, I would make it pierce. Like, have this be stop on the first target hit for the first 2 levels of this, but once you get this ability to rank 3, have it pierce enemies so that you can hit more people with it, and maybe have it do 50% of the damage after the first target or something like that. But other than that, you can keep the damage on this ability the exact same. Just make it a skill shot. That's it. Easy. You ready? Morigesh. This one's a little tough as well because to change this character, I truly think you have to change a lot of this character. The first thing I would do personally is I would increase the damage on the mark, but I would make it do 50% damage to currently marked targets. So, and there's actually 2 ways you can do this. So the first way is what I just said. You increase the damage on the first hit, but if you're hitting the same target over and over, it does reduce damage. The other way that you can do this is actually to reduce the damage hit on the first hit, but actually have it do increased damage each time you hit the same target. Both of those would be equally interesting. It'd be the difference between ramping damage and like trying to get Morigesh to spread out her damage in a fight. I think both of them could be cool. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, which one you think would be better. Those are the two ways that I would really change this ability. I think they'd both be interesting. To be honest, I don't really know what the effects of both of those changes would be. Like, obviously, the first one, you would want to change your targets more, which would make it harder to ult the people you want to ult. But the second one, would it make you really, really good at 1v1s, or would your damage just be too slow? You'd probably be really good at killing tanks, but would you be able to kill squishies fast enough? You know, that kind of thing. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Urdoc. This one, for me, is a little weird because I think the main thing that I want to change is his ultimate. Number one change I would make to this is just this ultimate does true damage, just by the way. It ignores all enemy physical armor, which essentially means it does true damage. I don't like that. But then the second change I would make to this is to increase the windup to it. Make this slower to fire. I think that'd be a really good change. I think currently it's just too fast. I think that if you made the windup longer, it would probably be really hard to hit. But also, it would make you have to use it on crowd control. You'd have to use it when your team is hitting people with CC. And that's the only way you'd be able to confirm it. And honestly, I think that's fine. I think this ultimate's really strong. That's how I would change it. Muriel. This one's, again, a character that I think if you were to truly change her kit, you'd have to change a lot of it. Personally, I would make her ultimate, I don't know how to say this. I would make it fire slower. She got this buffed at the beginning of, like in January last year. She got this buffed so that it only takes half a second to go off. I would increase this again. I would increase this back to like 1 second. I think that it's too easy for Muriel to just ult out. And I know this is a really long cooldown. And if you're using it for your own safety as Muriel, you're kind of defeating the purpose of the ultimate. But I just think it's a little bit too easy to get this off in the middle of a fight. And I really think you should have to get this off from safety if your team is fighting. And so that's kind of what I would change. I would just increase the windup. Narbash. Moving into Narbash. So this one I've also talked about a little bit on stream is his ultimate. While you are channeling your ultimate, I would make his healing 1.5x effective. So 1.5 times healing while you're channeling your ultimate. And I would make it so that any allies standing in the radius of my ultimate gain move speed from my Q. Those are the changes I would make. This is a pretty weak ultimate, to be honest. Just so you guys know, this is pretty weak. It's really easy to stun him out of this. If you're building True Silver Bracelet, personally, I think that item is terrible on Narbash. It's only good because it allows you to sometimes get your ult off when otherwise you wouldn't. But the stats on the item are not good. But if you give him an extra bonus for channeling his ultimate to his allies, it just basically will make his E more effective and it activates his Q in the area. I think that'd be a really interesting way to take this character. It would give you something to use your ult in your own backline and not necessarily just using it to try and run at the enemy team and pray for a knockup. I think it'd be really interesting. FaZe. This is a character, in my opinion, that just needs a full rework. But the main thing I would do is her right click. I don't know, man. I want to say don't let her pull allies. But that would also probably just, in this state, it would just dumpster the character. This is a character I think she just needs a full rework. The main thing I would do is her link. I would make it the cooldown on the link for switching allies. I would increase that. I think you need to be able to pick who you're linked to, and you kind of get stuck with them. I would increase the cooldown of linking to allies, and I would maybe you could even decrease the cooldown of the pull itself. But you have the cooldown of switching allies. I'm talking like 10 seconds. I mean, I want you to have to choose in a fight who you want to be able to pull. I don't like the fact that FaZe just switches target. Like, if she's linked to her carry and the Richter pulls the tank, she just switches target and instantly pulls the tank out, right? I want you to have to choose who that is before the fight begins. Just put some more thought into it. That's my thought process. Moving on, Rampage. The main thing I would change about this character probably is his E. Just because I think this is just a clear ability. I would honestly... The thing I would change about this is probably the way that it interacts with his ultimate. So currently, when you ult, your E gets its cooldown reduced by 50%. I feel like I want this to almost not have a cooldown in your ultimate. I want you to be able to rumble all the time in your ultimate. I would maybe change the cooldown decrease to like 75%, but reduce the slow. So like while you're ulting, maybe your E doesn't slow, but you get to use it constantly, and it would make you do a lot more damage, but you wouldn't be able to lock people down because Rampage slows down a little when he E's, so you're not going to be able to keep up with people. But I feel like that's something I want to see. I want to when I ult, I want to be able to ground pound as much as possible. How exactly you do that, I'm not sure. I think that if you take the slow off of it, you can increase that cooldown reduction. It'd be kind of interesting to test. Moving on, Revenant. So the main thing I want to change here is his Q. I think I would change his Q damage from, I would take the first shot from his Q and reduce it quite a bit, and then increase the later shots of it to compensate. So it does about the same damage, but it's more backloaded, so that if you are hitting like the enemy carry and the wave, it won't do as much damage with just hitting them with one bullet. But if you are able to hit the enemy carry with the entire thing, it will still do a good amount of damage. I think that the, like, eating one shot from this and taking, 150 damage at level 6 or 7 is a little bit much. I would just make it so that you have to set this up more to get the best benefit out of it. Richter. This is a character that I play a lot. I don't know exactly what I would change about him. I feel like if I were to change something, I would probably change his E, just because I think it's his most boring ability. It's either his E or his Q. If you were to change the Q, I think that the main thing you could do to it is increase the damage and just remove the silence. I think this character having a silence on top of his ultimate and his pull is really, 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 really strong. I think you could make this a slow, and it would be just as powerful if you increased the damage a little bit. That's probably the change I'd make, because this character has, in my opinion, a tiny bit too much comboable CC. It'd be different if his CC didn't directly all combo into itself, but it does. So it makes it so that this character stops you from doing anything for like 4 seconds, and it's not one ability, and it is he does have to use everything on you to do that, but it just feels a little bit too much. So maybe change this to a slow and increase the damage. Sereth, I've talked about this one a couple times. The only thing you need to change about this character is her passive. Her passive needs to, it currently reduces all basic ability cooldowns by 75%. They need to change this to 60%, and then the character will not be broken. You can change this to 60. You could even probably change it to 65%, and this character stops being broken. It makes her tower dives much weaker. It makes her multi-kill potential a little bit weaker. Obviously, you still get your ultimate when you pick up a passive orb, so you can still fight, but it will stop you from being able to get the invulnerability from your Q just one after another. That's what it would stop you from being able to do. So that's the change I'd make. Sevarog. I would want this character's abilities to upgrade. I don't, again, this is almost a full rework that I'm talking about. If I had to actually just do something to the main, like just without changing his passive entirely, I would probably make his right click a little bit shorter, but let it do a little bit of damage. And even if you don't want it to do damage, let it slow people that you dash through. I think it's a little interesting that this character has a really long cooldown dash that goes a really good distance that doesn't do anything. So I would probably reduce the distance on this by like 30% and give it like 100 damage. Not a lot, but like 100 damage, maybe 150 damage. Just something a little extra in there to add to it. Otherwise, again, I want this character's abilities to upgrade actually, but that's like a full kit rework. Shinbi. This is another kind of odd one. I think the main thing I would change about Shinbi is I would change her ultimate to not be the first target hit, but rather the last target hit. So it's not the person that you go in on that gets all your stacks, but it's the person that you last hit with an ability. So if you're like fighting in solo lane and you're fighting the enemy Sevarog, and then the enemy Fang Mao comes in and he's half HP, if you switch to him and hit him with like 4 abilities, but then you hit him with a Q that doesn't hit Sevarog, it only hits Fang Mao, your ultimate would switch to Fang Mao. And you'd be able to ult the Fang Mao to kill him rather than having to ult the Sev. and I know you can kind of do that right now, but you have to wait for your stacks to fall off on the Sevarog before you could ult the Fang Mao, and by then he could have healed. He has his shield back, right? I would rather have this see switching to the last hero hit. I think that'd be interesting. Sparrow. The main thing I'd change about Sparrow is probably her ultimate. I think that that's her most boring ability. I would change this to... I'm trying to think of a comparison. I want this to be like a snipe ability is really what I want to give her. Like Lux Ultimate. If you guys are League players, like Lux Ult. Or if you're Smite players, like Raw Ultimate. Give her that, but let her shoot it like 3 times when she's ulting. Like, have her slow way down, pull a big arrow, and shoot it. And it goes through walls, and it goes pretty far. It's not cross-map, but goes pretty far and does damage. And you can hit them with 3 of these arrows and have it apply, like, 3 passive stacks per arrow or something like that. Just give her something. She has a magical bow, and I think the way that her ultimate currently uses her magical bow is a little bit boring. So that's the change I would make, is just give her a new ultimate. And that's what I picture, personally. Steel. This one's really easy. The number one thing you change about Steel is his right click, his shield bash. Take the stun away from it. I think I've thought about this a long time. I think you can do it, and I think the character is probably still decent. You put like a pretty heavy slow on this, like a 50% slow for like 1 second onto this ability, and you increase the damage on it. Currently, this is 4% max health damage. This used to be 5. It got nerfed. Put it back up to 5. Take away the stun. Give it a hefty slow. That's what you change about him. Probably makes him bad, but I'm honestly okay with that. Faye. This one is also pretty easy. Her ultimate. Make this do half the damage when it connects its tendrils to people, and have it do half the damage when it pulls them to the center. Currently, if you ult somebody and they cleanse it, this ultimate does 0 damage. It literally doesn't do anything. So if you make it do half the damage when it hits and half the damage when it pulls, that way, even if they cleanse it, it's not going to do nothing. It will at least do some damage, even if they cleanse it. That's the change I'd make to Faye. Twin Blast. On this character, I probably would change his dash. With the recent cooldown reduction that his dash got, I probably just take off the cooldown reduction on his passive. Currently, his dash, when you hit someone with an auto attack, his dash cooldown goes down. I'd probably just take that away. This dash got reduced to 10-second cooldown late game, and I think that's plenty. For a dash that actually you can get over some walls with, I would just take it away. I don't think he needs it. Wraith. This one's tough because, again, I think to change this character, you have to change a lot about this character. I think the number one thing I'd change is probably his ultimate. I would make this, I would reduce the range. The range on this goes up each level of the ability, and at max range, it's farther than auto attack range at max rank, and I think that's too far. I think you just ring that in a little bit and call her good. I think other than that, you'd have to change a lot more stuff about this character. I like some of his kit, but his ultimate is the most frustrating part. That's probably what I'd change. And finally, Xeris. This character, other than hitbox changes, which this character please needs, his Q hitbox needs to be consistent. It currently isn't. I would make his ultimate more consistent. There are a lot of things about this ultimate that he will sometimes follow people when they flash. Like when you use this, if they flash, sometimes he'll follow them, and sometimes he won't. And stuff like that, I think, just needs shored up like that. You just need to know if you're gonna follow someone. And for enemies, you need to know when you can flash away from it. Do I have to take the damage? Can I flash without taking the damage? Currently, you can flash without taking the damage, but only sometimes. Other than that, I would probably make his Q so that if you get crowd controlled, if you get silenced or stunned or knocked up while you're channeling your Q, you keep the damage mitigation, but you cannot stun anymore. Currently, this is the one ability in the game that cannot be canceled. This ability, if you get crowd controlled while you're using it, you can still stun people. I would change that so that if you get crowd controlled, the stun part goes away, but you keep the damage mitigation for the 2 seconds that you're supposed to have it. That's what I would actually change. So, that's the last one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys would change about Predecessor heroes. I'm curious what you guys think. So, let me know down in the comments below. But as always, guys, I've been Pinzo. This video's donezo. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.